Time for another edition of the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. Sam McDowell, Jeff Chadiha, Soren Petro with you as we talk about the Kansas City Chiefs OTA's minicamp going on right now. We'll get into Patrick Mahomes here in a second. First, we'll talk about Myles Garrett going to the Rams. Is this a deal that the Kansas City Chiefs should have been on? Is it one that they could have been on? We'll talk about that. A.J. Brown to the Pats. Same thing. Is that a guy that they could have used in their wide receiving core? And was there a way for them to make it work to acquire A.J. Brown? I know that's one a lot of people have been talking about. At least to me, should the Chiefs be in an aggressive win-now mode? Is this the kind of deal? Both these deals. So this is what they should be looking at. We mentioned Patrick Mahomes participating in the 7-on-7s, but not 11-on-11s. What does that mean? Is he going to be ready for week number one? How about sitting and watching? Is that going to be good for Patrick Mahomes? Do we think he's going to wait till he's actually 100%? How about his approach to rehab? We're going to talk about everything going on with Patrick Mahomes now that we've seen him back out on the field. We'll do it right here, right now on the Red, Gold, and Bold.
You are listening to the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Chiefs on planet Earth, breaking down the Chiefs like no one else can. Red, Gold, and Bold is hosted by Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro. Jeff Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Sam McDowell is a columnist for the Kansas City Star. Soren Petro is the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here are the hosts of the Best Chiefs podcast, Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro.
Thank you very much, Curtis. Off and running here on a Tuesday. Remember, if you catch us via the podcast, you can be a part of the conversation. Got folks already up chatting in the chat room. We do it Tuesday nights at 9:30 p.m., Fridays at 10 a.m. Those are Central Times, people. Please observe the Central Time Zone when looking to communicate with us. Guys, let's start with the biggest news in the NFL. Myles Garrett goes to the Los Angeles Rams in a deal that gives up a first, second, and third-round draft pick, along with 2 years ago's Rookie of the Year and Jared Verse as a pass rusher. I saw a stat. I can't remember if it was the last 2 years or last 3 years. Sam, you might pick up on these numbers quicker. That most pressures over the last few years, 119 was tops. That was from Micah Parsons. 109 from Myles Garrett was second, and third was Jared Verse at 99. You get Verse in 3 picks. Going to the Cleveland Browns for Myles Garrett. Jeff, first of all, just what's your reaction to that deal overall and what it means for the Rams and the mode that they're in? And what should the Chiefs be looking at that, thinking to themselves?
Well, the reaction is that it's one more example of the Rams believing that there's a different way of doing business in the NFL these days. And look, there used to be 2 ways of winning a championship over the last few decades, which is either get a generational quarterback, build around him, or get a quarterback on a rookie contract and build up around that person. And now there's a third way that the Rams have been able to push in some other franchises, which is there's a 2 to 4 year window. You make bold moves. You're unafraid of moving star players. You're unafraid of giving up high draft picks, and you take your chances and you see what happens, and then you reset when that window closes. And so everybody thought when the Rams did this, 5 years ago, they were going to be done for the next decade. And here we are again talking about them having missed a chance to win a championship last year, being pretty close, and now having probably the best team on paper we've seen in the last decade in the NFL. And so I think they've been very sure. And you can only do this when you draft well on day 2 and day 3, and you're willing to part with star players, which they've gotten rid of Cooper Kupp and Jared Goff and other guys we can talk about. But they are being very aggressive, and they are in a great position right now.
Sam, what's your reaction when you see the Rams acquiring Myles Garrett?
Well, there's one other aspect of this that I agree with Jeff said, but I think we're leaving one huge thing out. The Rams outspend the salary cap, and the teams that outspend the salary cap have the luxury of making moves like this that are in win now mode. Teams like the Chiefs, who don't outspend the salary cap, don't have the luxury of missing on moves like this and not cashing those into championships.
Just to be clear, when you say outspend the cap, using void years, putting more cash dollars out than actually the cap will hold, gets prorated out over more years, where the Chiefs are very much a cash conscious team.
Cash to cap team. The cap is the cap. The cash is the cap for them typically. And the Rams don't need cheap labor because they outspend that amount. And so I understand that this conversation is going to be relevant in baseball a year from now too. I mean, it's relevant right now. I mean, you're seeing exchanges of deals between owners and players associations right now, but in the NFL, it's this misconception that every team spends the same because you have the cap. This is another example of it's not just, and I don't want to diminish what Les Snead's done because he has identified the right players. He set a culture that players want to be a part of. Like, they've really done a lot of good things. I mean, they traded away Jared Goff, who was not a bad quarterback, just to get better at that position. They identified cornerback and attacked it in two different ways, free agency and trade. Like, he does a lot of good things. I do think he also has a pretty coveted gig. I think the other GMs in the NFL are looking at Les Snead's job saying that job's easier than mine is.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. I mean, I think there's a number of things. I think to Jeff's point, the Rams have done a fantastic job. We've detailed it for a long time here on this podcast that they pile up those late round picks. They throw numbers at it. They don't it'd probably be an interesting, worthwhile study to see like what percentage do they hit on their 5th, 6th, and 7th rounds. I don't know. I don't know that it's any better. My suspicion is that it's not any better than anybody else, but they take 3 or 4 of them every year. At least they were there for a while. And that enables them to get, when you hit on those guys and you have a bunch of those guys that are in first contracts, that's cheap labor. So, when your Jags are, when guys are paid like Jags but play like stars, and then you don't take up the cap, you can make kind of the moves they're making. But then to Sam's point, I totally agree. They are in a we will spend mode. And I think the question, Jeff, that the Chiefs have is, it's one thing when Patrick Mahomes can evade the rush, when the offensive line is pretty good, but he can buy you more time and he can make plays, and maybe Andy Reid's ahead of the game on his offensive play calling. But if the league's caught up to your offense and your quarterback's now going to have to play on time as opposed to buying extra time with his feet, can you afford to be cash conscious if you want to keep winning championships, right? Do the Chiefs need to be adopting, if they're going to maximize Patrick Mahomes, do they need to be adopting the Rams mindset? And does ownership have to start writing bigger checks and saying we have a window and we're going to go for it right now in that window, and we're going to pay for going for it right now?
So can I cut it on that? The answer to should ownership spend more money is always yes.
Yeah.
Ownership always has more money in baseball and football. Like, I mean, MLS is an exception, but like, yes, owners have more money to spend.
Yeah. And to add to that, they can't look, I think what's happening is a sea change in doing business in the NFL. And again, like I said earlier, I think when you have a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes or a Josh Allen or a Lamar Jackson, whoever you want to put in that category, Joe Burrow, it's natural to think we've got 10 to 15 years to make hay with this. And let's be mindful of not getting too crazy out. Let's make sure we're spending our money properly because we've always got this guy behind us. And I think what's happening now is you're seeing a lot of teams are starting to say, not just the Rams, by the way, are saying, we'll make bold moves and we'll just be more aggressive than everybody else for a shorter span. And maybe we'll get 1, and that's great. Maybe we'll get 2, a shot at 2, and that's great. And that's what they have to be mindful of. I do what you're asking me, Soren, to answer your question is, yes, they do have to be more aggressive. And part of that is saying goodbye to Travis Kelce, saying goodbye to Chris Jones when the time is there. Because like I said, the Rams said goodbye to a 2-time Pro Bowler who's 25 years old. And it's on the cusp of a great career. They said goodbye to a guy who's been one of the best receivers in football. He'll win a Triple Crown, NFL Offensive Player of the Year. They said goodbye to a franchise quarterback. And Seattle said goodbye to DK Metcalf. They said goodbye to Russell Wilson. The Eagles obviously have been very bold and very creative and confident in the moves they've made when they went out and got Saquon Barkley. So these other teams are doing this and winning championships too. And I think it's a new way of doing business if you want to win championships.
So you think the Rams got the better end of this deal then?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I mean, I think if you're talking about setting yourself up for the future, the Browns did certainly, but for this year, the Rams certainly got the better end of the deal.
I thought it was a pretty good trade. I mean, I really thought both teams should have walked away from it thinking that they got a pretty good deal out of it. It's a trade that I thought just made a ton of sense.
I agree. I think it's a pretty good deal both ways. And I think, I mentioned those pressure stats, but Myles Garrett, I think, probably draws a lot more double teams if we added that into the equation. And so his pressure stats are coming against tougher blocking schemes and schemes that are all designed around just stopping him as a part of the equation. So I think Myles Garrett's definitely the better player. And I think usually, if you look at it on paper, the team that got the best player is probably going to get the better end of the deal. But for the Browns, like, listen, it's the Browns, so I expect them to screw it up. Like, I think, I go back to when the Chiefs moved Jared Allen, and at that time, and I've kind of always viewed these trades the same way. I think there's always kind of three parts to it. One, why are you at a point that you're trading a franchise player? I think for the Browns, for the Chiefs and for the Browns, for the Chiefs with Jared Allen, the same thing. They suck, and it's the one commodity that they can get a lot of picks, and they're saying this mix isn't good enough. We're going to rebuild. Then two, what do you get for him? Did you get enough? I think the Chiefs did at that time, and I think the Browns did here. And then three, what do you do with those picks? And that was the Chiefs did a pretty good job with those picks. I know it didn't. The other things that they did with it didn't work. But then also there's the part of, like, when you have those extra picks, it's what can your plan be in the draft? Can you use that as draft capital to move up, move back, do different things? It's not just directly what do those picks give you. So we'll see what the Browns do with it. But this is a 31-year-old player when he takes the field. I think he's right. He's 31.
I think he turns 30. I think he turns 31 in December, right? He turns 31 December 29th.
Yeah, Spotrack's calling it his 31-year-old season, so it's 30. So mostly he's 30.
It technically counts as whatever age you are at the turn of the year. That's what age season it is.
So he's mostly 30 years old, but he's going to be 31. So they are buying on, but we're talking about a guy, and I think this is what's different from the A.J. Brown trade, Jeff, is Myles Garrett is coming off by sacks, the greatest season an offensive lineman's had, right? So we're talking about a guy that, yes, is getting older, but he's coming off the best season he's ever had. So they are getting the premium pass rush talent in the NFL. And certainly amongst physical freaks, he looks like a physical freak. If anybody is going to hold up for the long haul, if anybody's kind of the modern day Aaron Donald, as far as that guy looks different amongst all these guys who look different from the rest of the population, he's it. Like, he would seem to have a pretty good shelf life. And if you are going to overextend for a guy who's 30 years old, this is probably the guy to do it for.
Yeah, and you're doing it again. I think just for look, I think Matthew Stafford's probably going to play another year now, based on how that contract got laid out. And they bring him in, Myles Garrett in now, and the defensive talent. This was a team that had the 31st most expensive defense in the NFL last year, and so a lot of cheap players, young players, were playing on this defense. Now they've added a lot more money to that side of it, which says, okay, we're going to make a run. And make a couple runs at this. And then we know it's going to be over, which is fine, because I think they're comfortable with knowing that we don't know what the future looks like 3-4 years down the road, but we're fine with figuring it out from there, because we have a track record now of doing that. And flip side of it, you mentioned one last thing on the Browns. They had a good draft this year. They had a good draft last year. They had defensive rookie of the year, good Sean Judkins and Harold Fannin and Schwessinger. And they have 11 draft picks next year. 2 first-rounders, 7 in the first 4 rounds, and Deshaun Watson coming off, moving into a place where they can get rid of him with a draft class that's loaded with quarterbacks. That's kind of how you get back into the game, or position yourself to be in the game, by making those kinds of moves. And I think, to bring it back to the Chiefs, again, we've talked a lot about paying non-premium positions and holding on to veteran players too long. The belief that having Patrick Mahomes is all you need to win championships is not going to work moving forward. They need more than that.
Yeah. Sam, this is like, you can't even construct this deal with the Chiefs roster.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, there's no Jared Verse, who the Browns say was key. First of all, I don't buy the Browns crap about, boy, this was never on our bingo card. Well, you're either lying or dumb. Okay, because he's been asking to be traded for multiple years. So if this wasn't in the back of your head, I don't know what you're doing. So I don't buy that for a second. But there really was, for Chiefs fans, they're like, and we can get to A.J. Brown, maybe that's a little bit different, but there's no way to construct a trade that could be the equal to what the Rams did. The Rams were uniquely positioned. They're aggressive. They're all into Jeff's point. They're willing to mortgage future for now. Chiefs, at least at this point, don't seem to be there with what they think their window is with their quarterback. So there was no way that Aaron Donald could have been a Chief unless we unwind. Let's go back to Trey Smith. Let's go back to Nick Bolton, Chris Jones, all those contracts that Jeff was talking about. There was no way for the Chiefs to even compete in something like this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the conversation needs to include several pieces. First of all, is the literal part of the salary cap. These guys would not have fit under the Chiefs cap. I think the second part of it is what we've discussed about whether, how it affects the long term and how long is your window. But I think the third piece of this is actually the most glaring, which is I don't think the Chiefs are a player away right now. I mean, and I think, the reality of where the Chiefs are is they need to embrace how this whole thing started. And when I say this whole thing, I mean how their success started. And it's between the John Dorsey drafts and the Brett Veach drafts, like they built through the draft. And they built culture by adding Andy Reid and Alex Smith simultaneously. And those are important elements that have sustained through the last decade, the ensuing decades since. But I just think the Chiefs need to run away from this notion that they're just a player away or maybe even two players away. And they need to embrace, like I said, the origin of how this whole dynasty began.
I think that's a great point. Sean in Jersey is a regular caller to my radio show, The Program, and he called in today and was talking about, the Chiefs got to be aggressive in their window and things like that. And I'm with you. Like, I don't know, what is their window right now? How do you look at a team? Like I even said to him, I said, forget about 6-11. Let's just call them 6-8. That's what they were when Patrick Mahomes went down. How is the window right now? Like, do you believe that the foundation is there and Myles Garrett is the difference between, this team getting there or not? Like, how do you view what is the window the Chiefs are in right now, Jeff?
It's a reset window. I think their window hasn't really started for the second year of Patrick Mahomes yet. And I think that has to be figured out through this season, how this season looked with the moves they've made. And then next season with whoever they decide to keep, what happened with Kelsey and somebody's Rashee Rice, who replaces him. It's very fluid right now. But I was going to say that the thing that is the blessing and the curse of the Chiefs' success is that when you've had the kind of run they've had, there's always the belief you'll get back to it again because of the quarterback. Whereas if you're in Cincinnati or you're in Buffalo or you're in Baltimore, you haven't had any championships come out of this, you're still more mindful. We got to do something here. The Ravens were trying to get Max Crosby, right? The Bengals just went out and rebuilt their whole defense. Went against their philosophy when it comes to spending money in free agency, but went heavy and traded for Dexter Lawrence. I mean, those teams understand that, okay, our window's still there, and we got to make something happen because we haven't gotten what the Chiefs have gotten. And I feel like the Chiefs are sitting there thinking, well, as soon as Pat's healthy and, we'll get Travis going and Chris will be Chris and, Rashee will get out of jail and we'll figure it out and Andy will call the plays and it'll all be good. It's just like it's a lot of ifs.
It's just still so funny to hear. And Rashee will get out of jail, just like, and that's a real part of their checklist of what's going on here. How about AJ Brown, Sam? I mean, how about this deal? This is one that has a 28 first and a 27 fifth that the Patriots gave up to go get AJ Brown. I mentioned where Myles Garrett was at. AJ Brown's been at 1,000 yards each of the last 2 years. He's missed games as well. That's an excuse for why his stats aren't higher, but it's also an indictment of what you can expect to get from him. What's your reaction if you look at it, if you're the Chiefs seeing the AJ Brown deal go down?
Extremely steep price, I thought, for AJ Brown. I mean, I didn't think AJ Brown was worth the first, and to get a first and a fifth, I mean, he's a 29-year-old receiver who often becomes the story for the wrong reasons. I mean, he's often, I don't think, somebody who supports his quarterback. And instead, I think he's pointing the finger at his quarterback. And I think that quarterback is to blame frequently. But he makes sure everyone knows it. And there's no leakier franchise right now than the Eagles are. And it's a competitive business, but man, a lot of information comes out of the Eagles about those guys not liking each other. And look, I mean, I think this year has highlighted the way some information gets out.
Yeah.
But it seems like there's a lot of anti-AJ Brown stories that come out of Philadelphia, and I think you're adding a lot of baggage to an organization that's already dealing with a lot of baggage going into this year, and the price was pretty steep.
Well, a year ago, we'd have been saying pick 30, 31, 32. That's what the Chiefs are going to be giving up, right? Like, I mean, they're in the Super Bowl every year, so why wouldn't you give it up to get A.J. Brown? He'd be the best receiver on their team as soon as they acquired him. Jeff, what's your view of not even really being talked about in the mix for A.J. Brown?
Well, I agree with Sam. I mean, the money situation, that made it just not doable. But I do think that, one, I think New England, first of all, New England's problem wasn't pass catchers, it was pass blocking. So they were the second highest scoring offense in the NFL last year. And so what you get for A.J. Brown, adding him in there, yeah, I'm sure Mike Vrabel's happy and Josh McDaniels, but they need more help up front. So we'll see how that plays out for them. But yeah, I think the Chiefs should always be looking for ways to add. But the thing is, if you want to add, I keep saying this, when you're where the Chiefs are at, you got to be willing to subtract in a big way. And I think one of the commenters did, we raise the point all the time about Chris Jones' contract. If Chris Jones and Travis Kelce aren't here right now, we're having a whole different conversation about some of these guys that have moved around, right? It's but you have to get into that mindset of, okay, we're done with this. We're done with this era. We're done with asking these players who've helped us build what we've built here to be a part of this. And that's what made New England so good for so long, that they were willing to get rid of those guys and clear them. When they won their fourth championship under Brady, people don't talk enough about, they went out and got Darrelle Revis, who was the best cornerback in football. And they kept him for a couple of years and let him go. But they felt like we had to have him, right? when they went and got Randy Moss. And so they were willing to make those kind of moves. But to make those kind of moves, you have to part with other people that you really like. And that's what the Rams did with Jared Verse. They loved him, but they said, we can find something better. And they got it.
Yeah, I do think that's one of the pieces of the equation that's here is like I don't just the whole mindset of where the Chiefs are right now. It's real different when you're coming off a 6-11 season and where they're at, and a 6-11 season, as Sam pointed out, cap strapped. I mean, they need draft picks. I mean, there's a lot of draft picks that are going away here, and we're still, even after a draft that they went into with 9 picks, looking at it going, still have a hole here, still have a hole here. This guy's done after this year. This guy's done after this year. It's a lot harder to do those kind of things when you're in that position.
Well, they lost $250 million out the door just defensively.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, it's definitely a different view for the Kansas City Chiefs right now. All right, they got a view of Patrick Mahomes on the practice field. We'll talk about that after you hear from our friends at Gain Asphalt and Concrete. Concrete season is in full swing and asphalt paving is revving up. So right now is the time to get your property on the schedule with Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Whether you need new concrete work, a parking lot repaved, crack filling, seal coating, or full asphalt installation, their experienced crews handle it all right here in Kansas City. Don't wait until the rush hits. Call today for a free bid and secure your spot before the calendar fills up. Get the process started right now at GannAsphalt.com. That's GannAsphalt.com. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lots. Italian Delight was the first restaurant to bring true New York-style pizza to Kansas City almost 50 years ago. They sell whole pies or pizza by the slice, or enjoy their classic strombolis, calzones, and sausage rolls. Sandwich lovers, check out their lineup of hot and cold subs, the combo, the meatball, or the Philly cheesesteak, just to name a few. And don't forget the pasta. Their famous lasagna and classic chicken Alfredo always hit the spot. And if you're hungry for lunch, check out their daily lunch specials, starting at under $10. Italian Delight can even cater your next work function or party. Dine in, carry out, or delivery, it's Italian Delight. Located just 3 minutes east of Kansas Speedway at 8145 State Ave in KCK. Check out the menu and order online at ItalianDelightKS.com. Kansas City's own Italian Delight. All right, Patrick Mahomes back out on the field and wearing a big knee brace, but did participate in the 7-on-7, Sam. Not in the 11-on-11s. What does this mean? Is he going to be ready for week 1?
Yeah, I mean, look, we saw Patrick Mahomes be part of OTAs. What we heard is that while he's hit all the checkpoints, There's still a long way to go. And I was actually encouraged to hear him talk that way, because all the outside noise are he's beat the timelines, he's ahead of schedule. This guy's attitude is such that there's no way he's not going to play week one. And I just thought he was much more realistic about the situation. He wouldn't even acknowledge that he's going to be ready for training camp to play in 11s and training camp. And that's reality. And it was acknowledgement of what we keep saying, which is there's no guarantee of anything. And that's not expressing doubt. That's not saying it's going poorly. It's not saying that he's missed any of the checkpoints, because he hasn't. It's just the reality of the situation is like the most important things to him will be running, will be cutting. And he actually said last week he hasn't done either of those things yet. And if those are such important checkpoints, we can't ignore that and say, wow, he's out there throwing passes to his teammates. No doubt about it. He's going to be ready to go in week one.
Jeff, there was an iconic weatherman in Kansas City for many years. He still pops around from time to time, Gary Lezak, who I remember saying, first rule of giving the weather forecast, walk outside, look up. Okay. Like, you got all the data, you got all the computers, but still there's an element of like walk outside and look up. By the way, being in the Carolinas and on the coast, that was a valuable tool as well. When you watch the clouds and the rains rolling around there as we battled that all week down there. I bring that up because, like, if I were to walk out and look at the weather when it comes to Patrick Mahomes, I saw a giant knee brace and a guy dragging a leg. Yeah. Like, I know he was out there, but and Sam, maybe you'll blow this up because you were out there and saw a lot more of him. I just saw the video that the newscasts were showing. This was not springy. This was not a guy, to Sam's point about not cutting yet and doing those kind of things. This did not look like a guy who was ready to go play a football game. What I did see of him. Now he's got months before he has to play a regular season football game, but it did not look to me like a guy who's ready to go. Like
just to be clear, he's not allowed. Like, he's not allowed to be springy right now. He's not allowed to run right now. He's not allowed to cut right now. And so you're right that you didn't see those things. Like, he's not been cleared to do any of those things.
But even just the going in a straight line and the running, the kind of jogging in a straight line, like, you can see that the leg is not there. Right. Like, I mean, that is an eye opener, I think, for a lot of people that kind of felt like, we were hearing these reports. He's going to participate. He's ready to go in these OTAs. Yeah. Like, look out, here we go. Okay. He's out there.
If anyone had listened to the Red, Gold, and Bold, they would have known.
They would have known. There were people having actual debates on national TV about him being a full participant in some of these things. And I'm like you said, could you just watch the video and see there's no way he could have been doing anything beyond what he was doing in those individual drills? And I like he has shown a lot of. He's a mature person anyway, but I think he's been very mature in how he's discussed this. And I think Sam made that point, which is he's very aware of. This is a big challenge. It's the biggest challenge he's faced in his career, which is I'm not trying to compare myself to Patrick Mahomes, but I've torn both ACLs and both my knees. And it's a very sobering thing as an athlete, because the way he plays, as cavalierly and as reckless as he can be with his body, he knows, okay, what can I do with my body now? That's what he's asking himself. Like, how far can I push this? And it is a long way from doing what we saw him do in those individual drills to be able to do that on a football field in front of 80,000 people with 300-pound men running at you, trying to put you back to where you were as far as being injured. And so I think that he knows, not just physically, but mentally, getting into that space. Like, who am I going to be now moving forward is a big part of Patrick Mahomes' rehab process. And so it was good to hear him talk about certain checkpoints he has to hear and he has to meet, and being aware there could be setbacks, there could be swelling, there could be things that happen that don't go as quickly in the next round of whatever he's trying to get to. And so I think he's preparing himself in the right way to deal with that.
To Jeff's point, like, just during the press conference, I asked him during the middle of it, because of the way he was talking about this, what is the mental process that it's going to require before you feel comfortable? Like, you're ready to play, not just your body is ready to play, but before you feel mentally ready to play. And I just thought he was really honest in the way he talked about the fact that the mental part of this is also a challenge. And that I think that he spoke to the fact that he learned early on that you can't think about what you're eventually going to have to get to. You've got to think about just winning the day, and because that's what. And I'm now putting the words in his mouth, but the way he's talking about it is like that's what keeps you sane, is not thinking about, man, I'm a long way away from being on the field right now.
We've seen him up at that podium for a long time, Sam. Did you see a guy that I'm curious because it's easy when it first happens to I'm going to work hard. I'm going to be a guy. Nobody's ever going to come back. Nobody's ever going to work harder than I'm going to work. You know, we've heard all the guys say that. We've seen guys do it and do amazing things and come back in short timelines. Did you see a guy that the reality of the situation was maybe like, okay, we're back playing football and I'm not ready to go. And maybe there was a bit of fear, or maybe not, maybe it's not fear. Maybe it's just an acknowledgement. Now, this is the reality of when they tell me 9 months, it's 9 months. Cause did you see a guy that's realizing the situation? You know, it's when it's months away, you can talk big. Like when it's almost a year away, you can talk big. When you're now watching the process of what used to be the final touches of the offseason come together before you take a little break and then you go to camp in July. That's now the next month on the counter. It's June. Did you see a guy that, maybe it's setting in that it's not happening as fast as I'd like it to?
No, I mean, I actually thought he was pretty cheery during the press conference. I thought he had a really good attitude even during practice. I mean, he was vocal during the practice as well. Now, only one of the practices was open to media, same as this week, which will be tomorrow afternoon. But I do think in his answer and the question I'm talking about, it was acknowledgement that I still have to hit every single checkpoint that every other player has to hit too. Like, there's no special exceptions for me. Those guys have 25 checkpoints over these 9 months. I've got 25 checkpoints over these 9 months as well. And I've hit every one of them. I haven't missed any of them. I haven't fallen behind. But, man, it still takes a while, even if you're not falling behind.
Yeah, that's interesting. Sitting and watching, will that be good for him, Jeff? Does that help him grow as a quarterback?
Yeah, no, I think it certainly will. And, I saw a comment where he talked about, his name Sam was there, and he talked about just settling his feet more and going through the reads, and even telling Andy that he's more focused on that because he knows he can't just go and do a number of crazy things, even in practice. And so that, I think, just getting into the mindset of seeing that happen and understanding that there is a way to play quarterback that's different from what he's been doing, and he can succeed at that, and there's value in that. I saw Tom Brady talking about, he talks a lot these days about a number of different topics, but he was talking about just knowing that when he got older in his career, he always knew that I didn't need to be able to be some super athlete to be great at quarterback. I knew I could see things happening before they were about to happen. And so all I had to do, he said, all I had to do was know what I was going to do before I snapped the football. That's all I had to worry about because I could see everything else that was going to happen. I knew what I had to do. And that's where Mahomes, or any great quarterback, not just him, any great quarterback who's aging needs to be able to have that superpower. That's how Matthew Stafford's still playing. We talk about the Chiefs offensive line and what they're paying those guys. I don't know what they're paying the guys for the Rams. I can't name half their linemen because Matthew Stafford is good at getting the ball out. He gets it out fast, and that's why he's playing at 38. And so that's, I think Mahomes learning these things now is going to help his career as he gets past 35. I think it's definitely a big thing for him.
I did look it up today. The Rams are the 7th most expensive offensive line based upon cap hit this year. So they are putting some money into protecting him. Although I'm with you. It is not the record-setting deals that the Chiefs have given at the center and guard position, in particular, that are out there. But yeah, he's the kind of guy that I think is, the mental game, Sam, I think would almost be something that's his new challenge. I can't physically do anything. So now I'm going to figure out, I'm going to, study tape a different way. I'm going to talk to people, I do think this gives him the opportunity to prep in a new way. And hopefully it does expand his knowledge of the game and the offense and what they're doing and become second nature, like Jeff says, where he knows what he's doing before he ever even snaps the ball.
Yeah. I mean, for the longest time, Patrick Mahomes' magic ability has been his ability to extend plays. And this, to me, is an opportunity to sit back and figure out a way to extend your career, extend the peak of your career. And when you go through it, I mean, because I did for a column today, is that so Patrick Mahomes has been a starter for 8 years. In 7 of those 8 years, he's been top 5 in pass attempts from outside the pocket. 7 of the 8 years he's been top 5. And in 4 of the 8 years, he's finished first or second in EPA, expected points added, from passes attempted outside the pocket. Like, this has been his magic. And when you go through, I think the most comparable quarterback to Mahomes is the guy that he grew up watching, which is Aaron Rodgers. From 2016 to 2020, Aaron Rodgers finished top 5 every year in the same stat: passes thrown or attempted from outside the pocket. And I only use 2016 because that's as far back as I could dig into the data on it. From 21 and on, Aaron Rodgers has only finished top 9 once in that stat. The age forced him to change as a quarterback. He could no longer be someone who found success out of the pocket. He's not quick enough to get out there with the same frequency that he did. He recognizes that. Those are his age 34 through 38 through 42 seasons. That will happen to Patrick Mahomes at some point. He's 30 years old. He's not 42 the way Aaron Rodgers is. That happened to Aaron Rodgers at 38. But it will happen to him at some point. If he can be mentally prepared for that adjustment before his body says you have to make that adjustment, I certainly can see a benefit in that.
Do you hear a guy taking the right approach, Jeff, when he talks about settling his feet and those kind of things? Do you see a guy that he too is acknowledging exactly what we're talking about here, about how he's going to have to change his game?
Yeah, I mean, I think Patrick Mahomes is smart enough to look at around the NFL. Some of the players we're talking about that Sam mentioned, Aaron Rodgers. I think Brett Favre was that kind of quarterback, and Brett Favre had a lot of tough times throwing interceptions for a long time because he kept trying to be that kind of quarterback for way too long. But Patrick Mahomes is a student of the game, and I think he probably spends a lot of time looking at or preparing for what's to come. And it's a lot different when you're getting this injury and you're in your 30s and you're a father and you got 3 kids. And I think he talked about it sounded funny reading it. I wonder how it played when in real time when he was talking about what his day is like, just getting up, going to rehab, going to practice, going to meetings, going to more rehab, talking to the media, going home, going to more rehab, and then chasing his kids to bed until he falls asleep. We all face this as we get older. We all face the reality that the things that we could do when we were younger at some point are going to fade away. And like I said, for him, when you have this kind of injury, it's such a shock to your body because he relies on this to make his to make his legend, right? This is what separates. And Josh Allen's going to go through it. Lamar Jackson's going to go through it. There's a whole litany of guys. And if we think about the players who just left the game recently, most of those guys who played a long stretch outside Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre to a certain extent were guys who came up in a different era where they got under center. They learned a lot of these things in college, the Tom Brady's, the Drew Breeses, the Ben Roethlisbergers. They learned this stuff, Peyton Manning. They learned how to do this stuff early so they could apply it as they went through their careers. Like Patrick Mahomes is learning it now. And so there is the need to learn it fast.
That's interesting. I think we all do face the aging, but for most of us, that doesn't affect our performance at our job.
No.
At least not for a really long time. And, you have to find out at what's really a young age. Oh, I can't physically do my job the way I used to, which I think would be the great motivator. Like I still want to be good at my job. So, I've got to do these things. I would think that would be the great motivator. Sam, do you think he'll be back at less than 100%? I mean, whenever he does come back, or at least less than what he could be, if he would just be patient and wait a couple of weeks, or if the Chiefs would be patient, do you think that they're going to bring him back at a less than 100%?
Yeah, I mean, from talking to doctors who are not treating Patrick Mahomes about this, just very generically about it, I don't know if he can ever be fully 100% this year. Or early this year, I guess I'll say, because there's going to be some things that, I mean, there's some doctors who will tell you this is actually almost a 2-year injury for like full healing. And Jeff, I don't know if you experienced that, but like there's some people that say you can come back and play. It's not a risk, but to feel fully yourself, it takes a while. And so 100%, I don't know, but I thought one of the most interesting, I guess I'll say the quote that stuck with me longest is he said, whenever I get out there on the field and feel like I can be Patrick Mahomes, I'll be Patrick Mahomes. And I think the Chiefs should listen to that quote too, because that's a player saying, you put me out there, I'm going to play exactly how I want to play. And that means the Chiefs better be sure he's healthy enough to play, because I think any illusions that you might have that he can protect himself and therefore he's healthy enough to play, I think it needs to be a step beyond that. I think you've got to say, we feel like he can do everything he wants to do, because I think he's going to play like he can. Once you put him on the field, he's going to play like he can do everything he's able to do.
Jeff, you mentioned I've been through the injury. I remember Trent Green talking about, it really was a couple of years before you're 100%. You can play. You're no risk to do further damage, but you're still not what you used to be. I mean, if he's going to play this year, he's going to be out there at less than 100%. That's just the reality, right?
Yeah, and that puts him in danger of, depending on how far away from 100% he is, that puts him at risk for other things to happen to him, which could not be good. And this is a player I was thinking about when he had that high ankle sprain when they ended up playing Philadelphia. I remember him taking off in the Super Bowl and running 20, 30 yards, keep playing. And it was just like his just determination to make that happen. And I think some of that's just youth, right? Some of that's just the arrogance of being younger and believing you can will yourself through it. And when you go through this, I don't know what Trent would say about it, but I'm sure it'd be something similar. It's that Patrick Mahomes, anybody who has an ACL tear has no idea how it happened. It's such a random thing. Like, you probably do the same thing over and over and over again, thousands of times, and then one time you do it, and then your knee pops. And so that's, as an athlete like Mahomes, I'm sure he's probably, when he starts playing again, wondering what position can I avoid to not have that happen again. But then you can't figure out what that is. And so the question is, can you be cautious enough to where you're keeping yourself safe, but also be close enough to what you were, to where you are making those great plays happen again? And there's a lot of start to his game, a lot of, lateral this, go here, stop, plant, go there, running over guys on the way to the end zone. Forget about standing in the pocket and just someone falling into your leg, like what happened to Tom Brady. And so, I think I think he will be out there before he's 100%, because he wants to win and he wants to help his team win. But I think it will be a mental challenge for him.
Everybody has all the data, Sam. They have all their doctors. They're aware of all these things we're talking about, that Jeff's talking about here with Patrick Mahomes. Is there a chance that this will be the inspiration to get Andy Reid to change his offense? That, hey, I've got to do more for Pat. It's not just like, let's send 5 out there. Pat will figure out whatever comes loose, and we get a schematically because I would say that my fear is that Andy Reid's like, oh, no, I got the running back fixed. We're all solved. We got rid of Jawan Taylor's penalties. It's all solved. Matt Nagy, was bogging me down on what I wanted to do. I got EB back. It's all solved. So now what I do can now do its best. Is there a chance that this forces him to say I got to do some misdirection. I got to play action. I got to run the football. Will this inspire Andy Reid to call the game differently and perhaps better, because he doesn't have Patrick Mahomes at 100%?
No, I mean, that adjustment should have come already. I mean, that should have no correlation with the health of the quarterback. That correlation should be with the health of your offense, which was where it is with Patrick Mahomes. I mean,
but it didn't change, right? So,
but
you can already check that off.
I agree with you, but their entire offseason has been about making that change. I mean, they've paid a running back top 5 money. Their GM multiple times has been in front of media talking about needing to impose their will up front, needing to use their interior linemen more and fire them off the ball to have run blocks. So I think if the Chiefs make that change, and I think all 3 of us on this podcast will believe it when we see it, even though I think they want to make that change. I think those are the discussions in that building. But I think we'd be wrong to correlate it to the health of Patrick Mahomes. I think it's more about the fact that what they're doing just hasn't worked with him healthy. And this is the other thing I would say about that, though, is if Patrick Mahomes says he wants to learn to sit in the pocket longer for an extra blip and decide who's open and throw it to the right guy, as he phrased it, take advantage of it. And you can max protect more frequently when your quarterback is willing to do that. You don't have to just put 5 guys protecting all the time. If your quarterback, and on play action plays, you can max protect more. And, Jeff brought up that play against the Eagles. And as I was writing about Mahomes scrambling and just how significant it's been to his career, even the data is what I mentioned before, as far as he's frequently among the always, except for 1 year, in the top 5 of how frequently he's throwing outside the pocket. But anecdotally, it's there too. If you think about the most electric plays the guy's made, the most impactful plays the guy's made, the best plays he's made, almost every single one is him out of the pocket. Like Jeff's play against the Eagles. I mean, start naming them. Jeff's play against the Eagles, the run against the Titans and the AFC Championship, the left-handed pass. His favorite, Patrick Mahomes' favorite pass has always been that 4th down to Tyreek Hill. And was that 2018 where he's running to the right, throws back left on late in the game. There's that play where he runs for 37 yards behind the line of scrimmage and throws a 4-yard touchdown to Chris Conley. The sidearm flick to Jerick McKinnon. I mean, I was going through all
against the Bengals, AFC Championship game.
How about Jet Chip Wasp?
Jet Chip. So you were getting to the end. Is Jet Chip Wasp was the only exception that I could think of to this rule of, like, when you list off the top 15 plays he's made, it's Jet Chip Wasp and 14 plays outside the pocket.
I think you're right. I will come back to what I said about Andy Reid in the scheme, though. Like, I think he's got to call the game differently. And I think, Patrick Mahomes,
I do too.
And maybe he was already, to your point, maybe he was already well down that road. Maybe he was already had it in this vision. Maybe once you install the offense, it is what it is, and it's a ship that sets sails, and I can't bring it back into port and change the sails until the end of this voyage, right? Like, maybe that's it. Maybe he, for 5 weeks, is like, we did this wrong. We need to do it different. I know the changes I'm going to make next year, but I just can't do it now. I don't know. He sat there in front of the podium and kept saying, well, the offense has all that. And that's the beauty of this offense. It's all in there. Okay, well, you're not calling it.
Yeah.
So for whatever reason, okay. But I do think that Patrick Mahomes, I think this is where we're gonna find out, about Andy Reid, because I think he has been the ultimate cheat code. And it's great when you call up these great game plans, like, oh, that one didn't work, but Pat bailed me out. Now I got a fresh set of downs. Let's go. And he does it time and time again to where you start to just assume it. Like the 5 out at times when they've had Wanya Morris on the field, and just like, I mean, either arrogant or incompetent. I mean, pick your term, whatever you want to do, and how they've done it. That has to end, because now you've got one of those quarterbacks that's a sitting duck. And I think, I think it'll be interesting to watch. How many times does Mahomes have to get hit before he recognizes, I got to get it out? Like, I got to throw it into the ground if I got to do it. I think that's going to be something that's going to be really interesting to watch is, will he just eat it? By eat it, like throw it away. Yeah. And I mean, really throw it away to where there's no chance of the play. We know right now he kind of sends it up in the air and gives his guy a chance to kind of make a play. There are times that Peyton Manning throws it in the ground, that Peyton Manning would turtle. Like, are we going to see the turtle out of Patrick Mahomes? That's not really his mindset. Andy Reid could help him out by not putting him in those situations. I don't know if it's going to.
Well, I think that speaks to the quote, and that's why that quote resonated with me when he said, "I'll be Patrick Mahomes." Is, I think, like I said, I mean, you heard the quarterback's plan, which is why he's got to be healthy before you put him in those situations.
Yeah. We heard a lot about Eric Bieniemy, Jeff, from Patrick Mahomes, talking about what he'll bring to the equation. What do we think is going to be different here, this 2.0 version of Mahomes plus Bieniemy?
Well, I think there'll be a lot better, I don't want to say communication, because I'm sure they were always talking, but I think there'll be more appreciation for each other. I think that, not knowing all the details of what happened there, certainly when Eric Bieniemy left here, those two were the best of buddies, and there was a lot of rumors and smoke about their relationship. But when you lose somebody and you lose the accountability, a lot of people on our chat session have talked about this, have come over the last few weeks about just the importance of toughness and accountability and keeping people in line and pushing people. And when you're on a roll, sometimes you think you don't need that. Sometimes that kind of person is an annoyance, or someone who's just, doesn't get it, or is just stick in the mud, whatever you want to call it. And then once it's gone, you realize, okay, he was the person who was helping bring that in, and we don't have anybody else to provide that now. And so I think on the Mahomes end, but I'm sure he's a lot happier that someone's in the building preaching that. Also, look at your coaching staff last year. I'm sure the players can see it. They didn't have guys who were like that. Now they've got more people who are like him, like Bieniemy. And on the flip side for Bieniemy, he's been out there in the wilderness trying to prove how great of an offensive mind he was and how much he needed to be a head coach and he could do this. And he didn't get to where he wanted to get to. And so now you come back and you're like, okay, I'm good to be back here. I know these people. I know the staff. I know the town. I know the players. And I can have a different view of this and a different, I can be more comfortable knowing that this is where I'm going to be the rest of my career. This is what I'm going to be. And so I think that helps both of them have a better run the second time around.
Yeah. Sam, what are your expectations?
Yeah, I think, Jeff spoke to Patrick Mahomes maturing earlier. And I think part of his maturity is he's determined he wants to surround himself with who's going to make him better, not people who are going to tell him what he wants to hear. And Eric Bieniemy is not somebody who tells you the best news every time you see him. He tells you what he thinks is going to make you better that day. And you need hard coaching. You need energy at practice. You need someone besides the players providing the hard coaching and the energy at practice. And the Chiefs have long-term turned to Patrick Mahomes to be the guy to provide that. And he did, like I said, he did have energy at practice last week. But first of all, you need to take that from as many sources as you can get. And second of all, it's easy to have energy in June. And it's hard when you're 6-6, 6-7 as the Chiefs were a year ago. And I don't just mean energy by someone who's glowing and positive and saying, hey, guys, hey, let's go. Like, you need someone who rides players, who need that type of coaching. And I just think it's way more effective when it comes from a coach as opposed to the leader of your team having to be the bad guy.
Yeah, you talk about maturity. I mean, I think there's probably a maturity for Eric Bieniemy as well. I mean, I think he's probably learned the things that didn't he probably like, oh boy, having that Pat Mahomes guy, that helps. Like maybe there's some other things that maybe I don't need to grind so hard on him. And I think when they come back that, I think their relationship will be better. Like I think, Eric Bieniemy might know these are the guys I got to push. These are the guys that don't.
Yeah.
I'm certainly optimistic that will be the case. And I'm very optimistic that Eric Bieniemy's been exposed to new ideas. I mean, I think good or bad, right or wrong, if this offense is going to evolve, I just don't think at 67 years old, Andy Reid's going to be like, okay, I'm turning a huge page in my book. I think it's going to be Eric Bieniemy and saying this is what works for Ben Johnson. And this is, we need to incorporate these things. And then Patrick Mahomes buying into that as well. I mean, I think he's going to have to be a voice that's listened to and not just like, I brought in a yes man. If he's a yes man, they're in trouble. If he's a guy that brings a force of ideas that from the outside, not that he's going to overtake Andy Reid or he's going to write all the game plans and Andy Reid's just going to be, but he's, they just brought him in to basically, handle the paperwork. They're in trouble. Like he needs to have been brought in because he's bringing in, okay, I've seen what one of the best offensive minds out there in the current way of playing against the way defenses are playing is done, and this is how we got to do it.
I think, first of all, I agree with you. I think whatever anyone thinks of Eric Bieniemy's ability to do the job, no one who's ever worked with him has ever called him a yes man. So I don't think there's danger of that being part of the equation.
Yeah. Well, and somebody in the comment section asked what accountability means. Accountability is here's the standard, and here's how we're going to get to that. We're not going lower than that. So you're always holding people to that bar. And Mahomes even made a comment about this where he talked about, I think he was talking about Bieniemy specifically. I can't remember now, but I think he was talking about getting in training camp and when it gets tough and guys don't want to finish plays hard and that you got to ride them and push them through that. That stuff matters when you're playing football games in December and January. That's the difference. And I think Mahomes recognizes that they don't have that same culture anymore. Especially when we want to talk about what they've been and how long this run has gone on. Most of these guys who are part of that run are gone. And so in order to create that and keep it going or sustain it, you've got to have people who understand what got you there in the first place. It's like I'm watching the NBA or the Western Conference Finals. Everybody's talking about how great a dynasty OKC is, and I'm watching the Spurs. They wanted it more. As simple as that. They were just tougher and hungrier. There's a whole bunch of teams in this league who want it more than the Chiefs want it right now, along with being more talented. They just they want what the Chiefs have had, and they're coming to get it. And so you need to be ready and be prepared to fight against that, or at least fight for it.
I can offer just one quick example from practice last week, which is
real quick before you go to
Go
that.
ahead.
Can I offer De'Aaron Fox being back and Jalen Williams not being back might have contributed to that equation too, as far as the 1-2 part. But just want to slide in that little NBA.
Yeah.
Spurs got a lot of offensive rebounds in that fourth quarter, though.
That's a great point. That's a great point.
Just a real quick example, this is the type of a small thing, but I think it is what shows up when you have Eric Bieniemy out of practice. Last week, they came out of the huddle for one offensive snap, and they were slow to get on the ball, and Eric Bieniemy screamed, "Get set." Team still didn't get set. He stopped the play. Team rehuddled and switched who was in the play based on who he perceived was not getting set on the play. Certain players just lost a rep at practice because of it. Like, that's when Jeff says you set a standard, that's implementing the standard that you're setting is, nope, we're getting out of the huddle. We're getting set. We're not going to just say, okay, now we're set. Now we're going to go ahead and run the play. You missed it. And that's the standard. And we'll see the effect of it. I mean, you've got to put it into play. We saw this team stick with Juwan Taylor for years and years after saying can't have penalties, too many penalties. We got to stop committing penalties. Like, the proof is in the pudding once the games arrive, but there is a different feel at practice.
Hey, do you think free 4 T-shirts are getting worn before a game?
I wondered that exact thing.
He's probably ripping them off as they're trying to walk out the tunnel, off their backs. There's no way that's happening if he's around last year.
Yeah, I think they're clearly, the coaching at a couple of positions was clearly overmatched by the personalities of the players at those positions. Okay. And I don't think, I'm with you, I don't think that will happen with Eric Bieniemy. Andy Reid still got to set that tone. I mean, I will say this, that's great if Eric Bieniemy do it, but where was Andy Reid in that whole mix?
Right. That's part of the problem.
That is part of the problem. And he's still the guy in charge. And listen, when to Sam's point, like, I agree, I don't think anyone's ever called Eric Bieniemy a yes man. But if he's setting the tone and setting the bar and setting the accountability only on the things that Andy Reid says to be accountable for, like, I think it's got to go beyond Andy Reid. I mean, I think it's clear that Andy Reid is the grandfatherly approach, which is a good thing to have. But Eric Bieniemy is going to have to be, I think that he'll have to figure out the discipline, that the hammers that need to be dropped, and do it on his own accord. Because I think Andy Reid just does not have that within him. I think that's going to be a part of the equation. All right, we'll be back at it on Friday, of course. We've got a lot we want to get into. We'll get into the receivers a lot on Friday, maybe even some offensive line talk there. Of course, you can always support the Red, Gold, and Bold by supporting our great sponsors like GAN Asphalt and Concrete. Asphalt paving, concrete, it's all up and running right now. Their schedule's filling up fast. If you own or manage a business, whether you need a parking lot, repave, concrete work, crack filling, seal coating, full asphalt installation, their experienced crews handle it all. Get on the schedule right now. Contact GAN Asphalt and Concrete. Go to GANasphalt.com. One contractor, all things parking lot, and lunch specials still under $10. I think Renee's insane, but Italian Delight's got them just a few miles east of the Kansas Speedway on State Ave, 8145. So if you're going up or down 435 on the west side, if you're out by the Legends, go on over. It's worth the trip. The first restaurant to bring true New York-style pizza to Kansas City almost 50 years ago. It's Italian Delight. Find them online at ItalianDelightKS.com. For Jeff Chadiha, for Sam McDowell, I'm Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.